I'm the new heir of the company. The words slipped out quietly, almost drowned by the hum of chatter in the marble-floored lobby. People turned, not because they believed him, but because they wanted to laugh. Daniel stood there in worn shoes, holding his little daughter's hand. His jacket was clean but old, his eyes tired but steady. Across from him, the millionaire CEO smirked, adjusting his cufflinks as if the moment amused him. You! The CEO chuckled. Do you even know where you are? Daniel didn't react. He had heard worse. Life had taught him silence was stronger than pride. I know exactly where I am, he said calmly. And I know who I am. A few employees exchanged glances. The little girl squeezed Daniel's hand tighter, looking up at him with quiet trust. The CEO leaned closer, lowering his voice. Security will escort you out before you embarrass yourself further. But Daniel didn't move. Instead, he gently knelt beside his daughter. Remember what I told you, he whispered. Kindness first, no matter what. She nodded. Then Daniel stood again and reached into his bag, not for money, not for proof, but for an old envelope. Before you judge me, he said, his voice steady, you should read this. The CEO rolled his eyes, but something about Daniel's calmness made him hesitate. Because sometimes, the quietest people carry the loudest truths. And in that moment, no one in the room realized, this wasn't the beginning of Daniel's embarrassment. It was the beginning of everyone else's realization. The CEO hesitated for just a second, then snatched the envelope from Daniel's hand, clearly expecting nonsense. This better be good, he muttered, pulling out the letter. The room grew quieter. Daniel didn't speak. He simply placed a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder, as if shielding her from whatever was about to unfold. The CEO unfolded the paper, and his smirk slowly began to fade. His eyes moved line by line. Once. Then again. This, he whispered, barely audible. A senior manager stepped closer. Sir? The CEO's grip tightened. This document, it's signed by Mr. Harrison himself. A ripple of shock spread across the room. Mr. Harrison, the late founder, hadn't named a public successor before his passing. Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. I met him years ago. Not as a businessman, but as someone who needed help. The CEO looked up sharply. Help? Daniel nodded. He collapsed outside a small grocery store. People walked past him, but I couldn't. I stayed. Called for help. Sat with him until the ambulance came. The room was completely silent now. He never forgot that day. Daniel continued. We stayed in touch. Not as rich and poor, but as two human beings. The CEO looked back at the letter, his expression no longer arrogant, but uncertain. And he left this to you? He asked slowly. Daniel didn't smile. Not because I'm special, but because he believed kindness reveals who a person truly is. His daughter looked up proudly. For the first time, the CEO didn't see a poor man in front of him. He saw something far more unsettling. A man he had completely underestimated. And suddenly, the power in the room began to shift. The silence in the lobby felt heavier now, no laughter, no whispers, just the weight of truth settling in. The CEO slowly folded the letter, his hands no longer steady. This could be forged, he said, though his voice lacked the confidence it once had. Daniel didn't argue. Instead, he reached into his bag again and placed a small, worn object on the marble desk, a simple key. This opens Mr. Harrison's private office, Daniel said quietly. The one no one's been allowed to enter since he passed. The room stirred. Everyone knew about that office. Locked. Untouched. Almost sacred. The CEO stared at the key. That's impossible. Is it? Daniel replied gently. A senior executive stepped forward. Sir, we should verify this. For a moment, pride and doubt battled across the CEO's face. But curiosity won. Fine, he snapped. Let's end this. Minutes later, a small group stood outside the private office door. The hallway was lined with portraits, each one a reminder of the company's legacy. Daniel didn't rush. He walked forward calmly, then handed the key to his daughter. "Go ahead," he said softly. She looked surprised. "Me?" He nodded. "You're braver than you think." With tiny hands, she stepped forward and inserted the key. Click. The sound echoed louder than it should have. The door slowly creaked open. Inside, sunlight revealed the room untouched, and on the central desk, a sealed folder with a single name written across it. Daniel. A quiet gasp filled the hallway. The CEO stepped back, his expression shaken for the first time. Because this wasn't luck. This wasn't coincidence. This was something he couldn't control. And for the first time in years, he felt it. Uncertainty. No one moved. The air inside the office felt different, like stepping into a moment frozen in time. Daniel walked in slowly, his daughter still holding his hand. He didn't rush to the desk. He didn't act like he owned anything. He simply looked around, with quiet respect. The CEO followed, his steps slower now, his confidence fading with each second. "Open it," one of the executives whispered. Daniel paused, then gently picked up the folder with his name on it. For a brief moment, his eyes closed, as if remembering something deeply personal. Then he opened it. Inside were official documents, stamped and signed. But there was also something else, a handwritten letter. Daniel unfolded it carefully. His voice was soft as he read aloud. "If you are reading this, Daniel, it means I am no longer here. You once helped me when you had nothing. You asked for nothing in return. In a world driven by power, you chose kindness. That is why I trust you, with everything." A few people lowered their heads. The CEO stood completely still. Daniel continued, his voice trembling slightly. "This company does not need another man who knows money. It needs a man who understands people." Silence. Pure, heavy silence. Daniel slowly lowered the letter. "I never wanted this," he said honestly. "I just wanted to raise my daughter with dignity." His daughter looked up at him, her eyes shining. "But if this responsibility was given to me," he added, taking a breath, "then I will carry it the same way I lived my life." The CEO finally spoke, but this time, there was no arrogance left. Only one question. "Why you?" And Daniel's answer would change everything. Daniel looked at the CEO, not with anger, not with pride, but with calm understanding. "Because I didn't walk away," he said simply. The words weren't loud, but they carried through the room like truth always does. "I didn't know who he was that day," Daniel continued. "He wasn't a billionaire to me. He was just a man who needed help." The CEO lowered his eyes. For the first time, he had no response. Daniel glanced at the people around him, the executives, the staff, the security guards. All of them watching, waiting. "This company," Daniel said gently, "should never be about power or titles. It should be about people, the ones who give everything, even when no one notices." He knelt beside his daughter again. "She's the reason I never gave up," he said softly. "And she's the reason I believe kindness still matters." The little girl smiled, holding his hand tighter. The room felt different now, not controlled by fear, but softened by something real. The CEO stepped forward slowly. "I was wrong," he admitted, his voice quiet. "I judged you, without knowing your story." Daniel stood, offering a small nod. "We all do that sometimes." There was no bitterness. No revenge. Only grace. And that's what made it powerful. Because in that moment, the richest man in the room wasn't the one with money. It was the one who chose kindness when it was hardest. Days later, when Daniel officially took his place, the company began to change. Not overnight. But steadily. Because leadership wasn't about being above others anymore. It was about lifting them. And it all started with one simple act of kindness.